Good morning, sir.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Is it audible? I mean,
Yes, sir.
clarity of speech is good.
Yes, sir.
Is this better? Is it more clear? Hello.
Both are clear, sir.
Okay. Fine. I just wanted to confirm, no, because I'm using a microphone. So just want to confirm. The video is also clear.
Yes, sir. Visual is clear.
So you can see me having my coffee.
હમણાં તો બધું સેટ છે ને
Am I audible?
You can see my screen, presentation screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a blank one.
We saw that, sir.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, are we audible? Sir, હું બોલું છું.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Harsh, you can check your microphone and screen sharing once.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm sharing the slides. It is visible? They can.
Okay, now we can see your screen.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah. Ma'am, next slide.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Could you please turn off your screen sharing? Good morning, everyone. We are now going to start admitting the participants in the Zoom meeting, and after 5 minutes, we shall start with the webinar.
Good morning.
सूर्यन के दर कोई अंदर ना
A very good morning, respected speakers and all the participants. First of all, we would like to thank you all for taking your valuable time from your busy schedule and joining us today. So let us begin by praying to Goddess Saraswati before we start the webinar.
We shall pray to Lord Saraswati by saying a small shloka. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstita Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha. Now, let us invite Dr. Prasad Nadik to give us a brief introduction about the topic of today's webinar.
A very good morning to one and all. Myself, Dr. Prasad Nadik, Professor, Department of Periodontology, KM Shah Dental College and Hospital, Sumandeep Vidyapith, welcomes you all. A journal club is an educational meeting in which a group of individuals discuss published articles to keep themselves abreast of new knowledge, promoting in them the awareness of current research findings, teaching them to critique and appraise research, and to encourage them to utilize research in evidence-based practice of the specialty. With so much of market-driven research in the journals, the role of journal club becomes even more vital to differentiate a genuine recent advance from a clever but outright harmful rediscovery of the wheel, which has long been discarded. There is a huge potential to make journal clubs dynamic, modern, and interactive, keeping them alive by dispelling outdated perceptions. Journal clubs helps us in keeping abreast of new knowledge, promoting awareness of current research findings, learning to critique and appraise research, and encouraging utilization of research in practice, thereby improving knowledge and reading habits while keeping the momentum of knowledge going and creating enthusiasm for research. Let us start today's journey of this webinar, Evidence-Based Journal Club, with the first topic, Introduction and Need of Evidence-Based Journal Club.
Thank you so much, sir, for the brief introduction. Now, before we start with today's webinar, there are some instructions that we would like to share with you. Our webinar will be streaming live on YouTube simultaneously with the Zoom meeting. So in case if you are unable to join the meeting, please use the link which is provided to access the live stream. For the duration of the webinar, all the participants are kindly requested to keep their microphones and video cameras off.
Feel free to ask any questions about the topic in the chat box or in the YouTube comment section. And by the end of each presentation, we'll do our best to answer your questions.
So now let us move on to the first session of our day by Dr. Harsh Shah on Introduction and Need for Evidence-Based Journal Club. Dr. Harsh Shah, the CEO of Ahmedabad Dental College and Hospital and the head of Department of Public Health Dentistry at Ahmedabad Dental College and Hospital, completed his BDS from Pacific Dental College, Udaipur, and his MDS in Public Health Dentistry from KM Shah Dental College and Hospital, Sumandeep Vidyapith, Vadodara. He holds a PhD and serves as the editor of the Journal of Ahmedabad Dental College and Hospital, as well as a reviewer for several dental journals. He is currently the member secretary of ADCH Institutional Ethics Committee, as well as the owner of Global Dental Clinic and the director of 3D Icon Imaging Center. We would now like to request Dr. Harsh Shah to please start today's first session.
Dr. Harsh, your mic is muted.
Is it fine, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, okay, ma'am. A very good morning to respected Dean Sir, Manali ma'am, Prashant Sir, all my PG students, colleagues, UG students if they are. Actually, when I was hearing to Dr. Prasad Sir, he has taken most of talk with him. So we'll start about the introduction and need of under the contents of introduction of journal club, history of journal club, aims of journal club, types. As we are seeing that in past 10 years, there was not such atmosphere of research. Only postgraduate students or PhD scholars were doing research, and they are also they are only the person who are publishing the data. And at that time, publishing the data is also not that easier. So, but
Dr.
nowadays, due to yes, ma'am.
Can you please share your screen?
It's there. Just a minute. Ma'am, it is visible.
Yeah, our screen is visible. You can
Visible?
start the presentation. Yes, screen is visible. You can start the presentation, sir.
Sure. Okay. So we can discuss our journal club under the contents, product definition, history, aims, types of journal club, how we can manage or how we can start journal clubs. As we know, nowadays more and more literatures are available on net. Even the UG student, third year student, final year student, interns, postgraduate students, PhD scholars, all are doing a very much or a particular research in their own study and in colleges. Is it visible?
Fine.
Okay, sure. So nowadays, it has become an imperative on the part of academicians, practitioners, students, and researchers to keep up with the vast amount of information available on the net, available on the in the journals, library. So it is very important to take day by day meal of information via net or via students. Now, what is a journal club? Basically, it is a type of type A charcha. What our Narendra Modi, our PM, is taking. It is a type A charcha in which a topic is critically evaluated by a medical or by a professional person. So, Journal Club is a group of individuals who meet regularly to critically read, understand, and evaluate recent articles published in medical or dental literature. The earliest references is found in a book of memory of a letter by late Sir James Pubmed, a British surgeon. And Sir William Osler is recognized as a founder of Journal Club in North America. Coming to the history part, in first scientific journal was established in year 1965, where after a long time the first specialist journal was established in 1820s. After a gap of 50 years, the references were added at the end of the journal or an article. After that, summaries were added at the end of articles. Paper statistics were established in year 1930s. Widespread use of IMRAD format was done in year 1950s. In 1970s, databases were introduced in hard copy journals, and in 1990s, we can have a net-based database like the scope, like EBSCOhost and all. The aims of Journal Club is basically to provide the updated medical literature, to teach and learn critical appraisal techniques, and to promote evidence-based medical practices. Just a minute. There are different types of scientific writing. One of that is original article. Original article is basically a new piece of knowledge, which is around 2 to 3,000 words or sometimes more than that. The second one is case report. which is a single event that could lead to a new piece of knowledge. A patient or a doctor or a clinician doing a different type of case or different methodology. So that is called as a recipe, which is around 6 to 700, 800 words. The next is review article. It is a knowledge others have laid claim to, which is all around 2000s. An editorial is a piece of knowledge that someone else is claiming, and it is around 400 words, right? Now coming to the main part, types of journal clubs. There are basically 6 types of journal clubs. First one, which aiming at updating knowledge related to a field of interest. Basically, it is a multiple articles of common interest and relevant to field of concern are selected to keep updated of current concepts. If we take an example like implants, so depending on the interest, lot many of the articles are collected for implants, and they are scrutinized with the different technology or different surface treatment of the implant or different cases. So basically, it updates the knowledge related to implants. Second, which is aiming at updating the clinical practice. Articles with different clinical techniques are selected to help in day-to-day practice. A clinician who is doing a simple caries removal and restoration. So in that, we are using simple GIC, but this type of cases can be with different sandwich technique or multiple restoration technique or with different type of materials. So we can upgrade our knowledge while this type of journal clubs. Third, साइड बनाई सके. Third is aiming at teaching and learning critical appraisal techniques with evidence-based dentistry and evidence-based medicine. In the first part, how critically appraise a journal club. The paper is introduced in a structured way and assessed methodologically for its strengths and weaknesses. What are the techniques and what are the techniques or statistics has author used, and what are the strengths of that and what are the weaknesses of that. Either they have used cleared the bias, either they have done a blinding, not. So we can go through that and we can assess the strength and weakness of the paper. And the second part is evidence-based journal club, which starts with real-life problem, literature searching, critical appraisal, understanding of the evidence-based, and decision-making to solve the problem. If we can take the example of a edentulous arch, so basically our problem is edentulous arch. We can search, we can do literature search, like we can make dentures, make verters, we can make all 4, all 6 basal implants or pterygoid implants. But in this case, which methodology is appropriate, and after seeing the rage, after seeing the CBC reports and the diabetic report, which technology or which type of treatment is needed. So we can critically appraise that, we can understand the evidence, and then we can make the decision to have us to solve the problem. The fourth type is problem-based journal club, which is centered on process learning principle. This small group formed and are given individual topics to focus from a particular article. Each group is asked to discuss and arrive at consensual answers. In this type of journal club, we can form we can give a small group for subgroup implied hypothesis, and they have to ask and they are asked to have a designed study for that. Title is given to the second group to prepare the methodology. Title and methodology both are given to identify the pitfalls of the paper or the methodology. And the last group may be given to evaluate the validity, reproducibility, relevance, and feasibility of the paper. The fifth type is alternative journal club, in which creativity is an additional element. It is basically not a normal approach, it is a creative approach in which videos, storytelling, books, reviews are added. And this type of journal club, alternative journal club, are more impactful than usual journal clubs. And the sixth type, which is innovative journal club, which basically utilizes adult learning theory relating learning to immediate work actions, use of people teaching format. So basically, to revise, there are 6 types of journal club. First, aiming at updating knowledge related to a field of interest. The second one, aim at the updating clinical practice. The aiming at the teaching and learning critical appraisal techniques with evidence-based dentistry and evidence-based medicine. Next is problem-based journal club. Next is alternative journal club, and the last one is innovative journal club. Now, why we need journal club, or why we read articles, why write the journals. So most of the answers are to impress others, to impress staff, impress colleagues. But after that, to update with current development in dentistry, for continuing dental education, for using evidence-based practice, for doing more appropriate publications, to involve in academic debates, to develop interview skills, and to develop critical appraisal skills. So these are main points for which journal club are helpful. Now coming to how to start a journal club, in which main 3 parts are there: director, moderator, and participant. These 3 roles are most important in this. Who is director? Director should be one of the group members, in which he or she should self-updated with the topic, he or she should be interested in research, and he or she should have academic appetite for scrutinizing articles methodologically. The main role comes for the moderator, which is he or she should have done properly for the journal club, like time. He or she should ask each and every participant for particular time, day, and pattern. And moderator should be versatile to the session. The next is participant. The participant must have exchange of ideas among members. There should be a round or horseshoe table pattern sitting, so each and every one can see other one. And maximum of 10 to 12 members should be there. Participants must be oriented towards fundamental knowledge of epidemiology and biostatistics. So after this, director, moderator, and participants full role, we can have a nice journal club. How to format a journal club? An article should be taken or selected priorly, at least a week prior, and distributed to the participants. Specific participant is assigned to present the article. If the presenter should present the content and evaluate with his or her opinion, then other members should contribute with their opinions and interpretations for the same. How to select an article? An article, but it is not much needful or much latest, then there is no need to waste the time on them. So article should be latest. It should engage the participants. It should create the controversy why this technique was used, why this technique is not used. It should pose the hypothesis conclusion. It should have a different study design, not usual but different, so we can learn from that. We can have an idea that this type of different study design can also be used, and definitely a new scope of teaching fundamentals would be there. So these are the highlights of the session. How to conduct: one presenter, one director, one moderator, participants, and a round table is needed. Now, after all this, what are the benefits of the class? What we can gain from that? It is basically we can improve reading habit by enabling critical thinking and promotes questioning attitude. Basically, when we have done our graduation, the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, general medicine, general surgery, so we have a background knowledge of that. From that, we can assess this article in any different condition. Like we can ask ourselves the question that why this methodology is used, why this material has been used. We can identify author's purpose, why he has taken this type of sample size, why he or she has done blinding, why he or she has done, how they have removed the bias, why they have taken this much of sample size. So, or we can identify the main idea behind this. We can recognize the sequence. We can recognize the cause and effect of the method. We can make interferences. We can predict the outcome. We can summarize it. We can distinguish between fact and opinions. And we can make connections with outcome and hypothesis. Next impact is we can expand our knowledge. We can expand our knowledge because by critically evaluate, by the help of peers or by the help of participants, colleagues, we can expand our knowledge how to critically evaluate things, how they have done these things. We can enhance our skills, or we can have a new skill developed by critically evaluation attitude. And the most important, improves our knowledge of epidemiology and biostatistics. So by reading more and more or by presenting more and more clubs, we can have an idea of different methodology, different type of bias, different type of sampling techniques, different type of tests they've applied by applying t-test, test, Fisher exact test. So we can realize these things in our aspects also. So we can learn this epidemiology and biostatistics by reading more and more articles. And after all, after seeing all this, after learning all this, the best part is we can write our own good research paper. So any other one cannot critically evaluate our paper. So we can end our session. here. So always seek knowledge, always ask a question, right? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience, for listening to me. Hello.
I would request the participants if they have any questions. Okay, so sir, we have one of the questions. How to assess the validity at in an article?
So basically, you're talking of questionnaire validity for that.
Internal regarding internal and external validity.
Just a minute. Hello.
Yeah, sir. The question is, am I audible, sir? So the question is how to assess the validity of an article.
Uh, like actually understand direct or like this type of question. You are like a questionnaire validity or article validity. See, sir, if we are going to the questionnaire validity, the questionnaire should be like if it is if it is in a language, then it should be transformed in English or Hindi. Then it should be given to the 10, at least 10% of the sample size, 10% of the samples to reevaluate and for the changes of the questions or to reframe questions. And then we have to apply the kappa statistics for that. And the value of that should be around like 0.90 point is achievable, it's fine. Then we can allow this type of questions for the other questioning.
Okay. So we have one more question, just a minute. Sir, one more question. The next question is there any readily available critical appraisal tool which can be applied to articles from all aspects, for all aspects?
Sir, see, the simple question, if it is a readily available tool that I don't know it is there or not, but it will not help to create our own critical evaluate thing. So if it is available also, then it is not to be used. So we can, otherwise we cannot develop our own skills for that.
Yes, sir. Agree, sir. So, sir, we are done with the questions, Q&As. So, thank you so much, sir, for the
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
enlightening lecture. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Sir, just a
Sure,
minute,
sure,
sir.
sure, sure.
One more question. Last moment question we
Yes,
have.
yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What tool
What
can we
tool
use?
can we use to assess risk of bias for systematic review?
It is a very wide topic and wide answer to discuss. Uh, can we have like if we can you can share my number to them, I can
Sure.
definitely explain it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your immense knowledge with us. Now, let us appreciate Dr. Harsha by presenting him with an e-certificate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now, let us move on to our second session of the day by Dr. R. Venkata Subramaniam on the topic Conventional versus Evidence-Based Journal Club. Professor R. Venkata Subramaniam completed his BDS from Raja Muthia Dental College and Hospital, Annamalai University, and his MDS in Oral Pathology and Microbiology from Nair Hospital Dental College and Hospital, University of Bombay. He is currently the Dean at Kemsha Dental College and Hospital, Sumandev Vidyapit, Vadodara. He was named a PhD guide by the Dr. NTR University of Health Sciences in Andhra Pradesh, India, after more than 30 years of teaching experience. He is a pioneer in the field of evidence-based dentistry in India. He has been invited as a speaker at over 60 oral pathology conferences and postgraduate conventions. He has previously served as the editor of the Journal of Indian Association of Oral and Maxillopathologists and is presently a member of Journal of Translational Medicine's editorial board. He is a resource person for training the teachers program by Dr. NTR University of Health Sciences, Vijayawada. He has over 20 articles in both national and international journals to his credit. He is not only an expert in computers and web design, but is also well versed in modern teaching methods like Blackboard and iSpring softwares. So let us invite Dr. Subramaniam to kindly begin his session on conventional versus evidence-based journal club.
Thank you very much for a kind introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Ladies, okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Is my screen visible? Is
Yes.
my screen visible as a, no? Full screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for a kind introduction. So without much ado, let me start with my presentation. We are all drowning in a lot of information and starved for knowledge. So if you see, data is not information. Information is not knowledge. Knowledge is not understanding. And understanding is not wisdom. The problem is not actually with information. Even though there is so much amount of information around, still information is not much of a problem. What is problem is misinformation and disinformation. A subtle difference between the two. Misinformation, wrong information, factually not correct. Disinformation, deliberately spreading wrong information. So that is a problem with our journals also and articles. Because of that insistence that all of us should start publishing articles, there is so much amount of misinformation being spread. If you look at the truth of these scientific articles, out of these articles which are being published, original and valuable are only around 10 to 15% of published articles. And helpful, less than 1% of published articles. And applicable, probably less than 0.1% of published articles. Of course, this article was published sometime in 1980s, but probably the values which they have been mentioned here probably still hold good, or probably even less number of articles are probably helpful and applicable. So that's probably one of the reasons why we need to have a journal club. So journal club, what is it? Already the definition has been given by Dr. Harsha. So I just redefined it again. It's a club where a group of individuals who meet regularly to discuss the clinical applicability of articles in current medical journals. Earlier, when they started all these journal clubs, they used to have coffee club or outside in a hotel, where they used to enjoy having a drink, beverages, and then discuss regarding articles. So that is one of the reasons why what was called as journal club, a meeting of individuals. And nowadays, of course, with more strict rules regarding journal club, rarely they meet outside for at least discussing articles. So why do we need this journal club? Already the various reasons why a journal club is necessary has been discussed in the previous presentation by Dr. Harsh. I'm just going to recap what was told earlier. Number one and the most important thing is probably to share information and to update one's knowledge. So whatever new information which is available, if one colleague wants to share it with other colleagues in different departments or in different institutions, a journal club is very useful in that. Number three, learning skills. Learning skills is like this helps in self-directed learning skills. For a person to learn on his own, when he starts presenting journal clubs, articles in journal clubs, it improves his learning skills. Four, reading skills. So when you start reading an article, you learn the art of reading articles, how to skip judiciously, what is necessary and what is not necessary in a particular article. You all learn how to read an article. And one of the most biggest advantages of doing a journal club is learning these critic skills. That means the art of analyzing an article. Yeah, so that is analyzing the articles. And then we also have these journal clubs providing ideas for new research. So that's one another advantage of having a journal club. And for the clinicians, TRIP means translating research into practice. So whatever new research is there, how best we can translate this into clinical practice. So that's another big advantage of a journal club. Besides all these various reasons, if you ask the colleges, why do they have journal club in their departments? One of the main reasons is because the DCI insists that we should have a journal club, and therefore we have a journal club. Okay, but of course, besides the fact that DCI is particular that we should have a journal club, the other reasons are far more important, and the reason why we should have a journal club, either in an institution or the department or even otherwise. Clinicians who are not part of any institution should also be part of journal clubs so that they can translate research into their practice. Of course, already different formats of journal club have been revealed. I'm just going to talk about a few formats of journal club, and we'll be concentrating mainly on two of these formats for our discussion today. One is the traditional journal club. The problem with traditional journal club is the tradition keeps on changing. What was tradition 20 years ago is not the same tradition now. So tradition keeps changing. So whatever is so-called traditional journal club we'll be discussing. And we are also going to talk about evidence-based journal club. And these two are the ones which we are going to essentially compare in my presentations. Besides this, one of the journal clubs has been introduced recently is flipped journal club. Okay. And one more is virtual online journal club. Okay. So basically what was told earlier by Dr. Harsh, the critical analysis journal club, the evidence-based journal club, or problem-based journal club, all can be clubbed under this evidence-based journal club. Okay. So the topic of my presentation is traditional journal clubs versus evidence-based journal clubs. So first, let us look at the traditional journal club. Hopefully I'm audible. Is there any problem? Fine. I assume that everything is quite clear.
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Okay. No, that was just to give me some chance to have a swig of water. So the traditional journal club basically starts with selection of a resident or a PG student in the department to present the journal club. So it is decided first. And once that is decided, the article is selected. This selection of the article in a traditional journal club is by the PG student or the resident, or sometimes even the senior faculty member in the department selects the article on behalf of the student. So an article is selected, and this article is circulated beforehand, well in advance, at least 1 week or 10 days beforehand, either electronically or a hardbound copy is circulated beforehand. And then this article is presented. And this presentation of the article is also typically in the same format like the journal. The rationale, introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, and so forth. And critical analysis of the article is also done. But the critical appraisal of the article is not in a very standard format or a particular format. There is no particular method by which the critical analysis is done. Okay. And then finally, the article is discussed by the senior faculty and the attendees, with the senior faculty members of the department providing their insight regarding that particular article. So if you look at the critical appraisal of a traditional journal club, of course, though strictly speaking, the article is critically appraised, and discussed, most of the time it is not in a particular format. People just tend to say, the figures were good, the photomicrographs were good, the conclusions were thought-provoking, the title is submitting, the references are quite good in number and useful. Okay, so this is with regards to the traditional journal club. Okay, so this traditional journal club has got its own advantages. Number one, ease of implementation. Not too much of hard work is necessary to implement a traditional journal club. Two, no additional skills are required. Additional skills in the sense, if a person has got PowerPoint presentation skills and a little bit of here and there knowledge about critical appraisal, those skills are sufficient for him. It doesn't require any other additional skills. This point is important when you're going to compare this with traditional journal club with evidence-based journal club, where we need additional skills. And it is very comfortable for the audience and the faculty. The reason is they don't have to do much. It is the person who is going to present the journal club who head and make sure that he presents the journal club properly. And the amount of time required to prepare a traditional journal club or discussion of an article for a traditional journal club is not much. The amount of time required is quite less. So these are the advantages of the traditional journal club. But there are, of course, some problems with traditional journal club. And the first and most important thing is there's no particular method for article selection. Article is selected because, okay, this is the latest article. I like this article. I like this author. This is an article which is available easily online. Okay, so based on those few points, articles are selected without any specific method. Two, sometimes the quality of these articles may not be relevant to the situation at present. So the articles are selected because they're very interesting. But an interesting article is not necessarily a useful article for our current clinical scenarios. So sometimes these articles which are discussed in the journal club, in the traditional journal club, may not be relevant. And since the audience are not involved much, because they take it for hand, so sometimes and the advantage of traditional journal club is that besides getting knowledge about the article in question, they do not get any other knowledge. They don't improve their skills of searching for medical literature regarding, unless of course patient care. In other words, let us say we have some problem with our patients. We don't select article related to that, then that particular journal club may not be much use to us. Okay, so that is one of the problems with traditional journal club, that it is not integrated with the patient care. So because of all these problems, people started looking out for alternative methods of conducting a journal club. And so that is how they came out with evidence-based journal club. So what is evidence-based journal club? Is basically the use of principles and tools of evidence-based health in organizing and designing and conducting a journal club. Okay. Now, to conduct an evidence-based journal club, we should first have knowledge about what is evidence-based health or evidence-based dentistry. Okay. Most of you probably already must be aware about evidence-based health, evidence-based dentistry. I'm just going to give you a very brief outline about this evidence-based health, because that is not the objective of my presentation. So a very brief introduction to evidence-based health. What is evidence-based health? It is a consensus, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in conjunction with clinical experience to make decisions regarding patient care. So this was defined long ago in 1996, and this definition still holds good. So three parts of the definition which you should understand the meaning. Number one, conscientious, a very big word, basically means being very thorough, diligent, okay? Explicit means being precise, definite, straightforward, and clear-cut. And the third part is judicious. That means whatever evidence we are going to gather, we need to be sensible about it. Just because somebody says something, immediately we don't have to do it in a practice. It depends whether it is right for my practice or not. Okay, so that are the three basic features of an evidence-based health: a conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence. And please remember, this is used in conjunction with clinical experience to make decisions. It is not that only these three, we just go by the evidence. We also need to use our gray sense, which is our common sense, of course, which is quite uncommon. So basically, if you look at evidence-based dentistry, there are three important components of evidence-based dentistry. One, the dentist's expertise. Two, the scientific evidence. And three, the patient needs and preferences. So what is this evidence? So if you look at the dictionary definitions of evidence, it's a sign or indication of something. Like, for example, there is evidence that this robbery has been committed here, like that. Okay, robbery has been committed. So that is a dictionary definition. But when it comes to question of scientific evidence, basically, scientific evidence is available body of facts or information indicating whether a proposition is true or valid. Valid means, is it legally tenable? Is it right? Is it correct? So what is this scientific evidence? Basically, scientific evidence has been defined as clinically relevant research. They also include, the scientific also includes opinions of respected authorities, like professors like me, and based on clinical evidence. Okay, so also includes opinions of respected authorities based on clinical evidence. That is the scientific evidence, and this scientific evidence has been sort of, there's a hierarchy of it. Starting the lowest, in the hierarchy is case reports, case series, editorials, and narrative reviews. The highest in the hierarchy is the meta-analysis, systematic reviews, and based on these meta-analysis and systematic reviews, we have the clinical practice guidelines. See, basically, case control studies, cohort studies, RCTs, these are all primary studies. When it comes to meta-analysis, systematic reviews, and clinical practice guidelines, these are secondary studies. Okay, so the secondary studies, of course, are based on these primary studies. Okay, so they are not in that way original research. Of course, they are research work, but they are not actually done by a researcher. So based on research which has been done by others, they do this evaluation. Okay, so these are secondary studies, but if they are done properly, they are the highest level of evidence. So the evidence-based journal club, if you see, are the following steps are there. Just like the traditional journal club, we need to select a resident, or unlike a single person in the traditional journal club, you can also select a small group of individuals for presenting an evidence-based journal club. Okay, but here we do not give the article to them. Instead, a problem can be given to the individuals. Okay, of course, what is this problem we'll be seeing later on. So we need to identify a problem and give it to the persons who are going to conduct the evidence-based journal club. They frame the question, they search and select the articles. The article is critically appraised, and they come out with a one-page summary, what is called as critically appraised topic, CAT. Okay, and this article, the critically appraised article before appraisal, is circulated beforehand along with the worksheet for critical appraisal. Okay, a blank worksheet. And then on the day of presentation, the entire thing is presented and discussed by the attendees. So these are the simple steps for conducting an evidence-based journal club. Okay, so let us start talking one by one. The first step, which are all interrelated, is identifying the problem, framing the question, and search and selection. Okay, because basically, these are all part of the evidence-based dentistry or evidence-based health. Okay, so those who are already familiar with evidence-based health or evidence-based dentistry, they will probably find this easy to understand. Okay, so how do we go about searching the article and for selection? First, the problem. Okay, so the problem has to be framed by framing the question, what is through a Pico format. And then we search answer to the question which we have framed. And then we evaluate the results after having searched for it. And then we decide which article is going to be good enough for our journal club and finalize that article. Okay, so we shall now look one by one the problem. So the problem can be an etiologic problem, diagnostic problem, prognostic problem, therapeutic problem, or epidemiologic problem. The reason why I'm making this class is that the critical appraisal sheets, the worksheets for critical appraisal, again differ whether it's an etiological problem or diagnostic problem or prognostic problem, okay, or a therapeutic problem. So once we have a problem at hand, we start to frame the question, okay. Let us say, for example, the problem which we have in hand, is there any new treatment for oral lichen planus? Okay, so let us say, for an example, this is the problem which we have at hand, okay. So we need to frame the question population. I means intervention. C for comparison and control. O for outcome or objective. Okay. In fact, recently they also have added T, for time frame. Okay. That means all this question of problem, this Pico format, the answer to the question should be found within a certain time frame. We cannot take our own sweet time to find answer to the question. Okay. So we have a question and we have this method by which we can frame the question. Okay. The Pico format. Okay. So using that Pico format, let us say the question which we had in hand, patients with oral lichen planus, that is the problem. The intervention, we are looking at new treatment modalities. Let us say in the evidence-based health, we are probably even more specific about the intervention. Okay. Let us say I've come across some new method of treatment of oral lichen planus. I can include that here and see whether it is better than what traditionally is used for oral lichen planus like steroids. Okay. But here, because we are looking out for any new treatment modalities, I've just put it as any new treatment modality for oral lichen planus, and I'm comparing with the traditionally used topical steroids in the treatment of lichen planus, and the outcome is it should be effective in managing oral lichen planus. So if the question is formulated based on this Pico format, the question would be, in patients with oral lichen planus, is there any new treatment more effective than topical steroids in the management of oral lichen planus? Okay, so that is how we have framed the question. So now we have had the problem, we have framed the question, and now what we have to do is to search for an answer to our question. Okay, so this searching, of course, is going to be generally done online. Okay, where we are going to probably go into these medical databases which are available like Pubmed or Medline and so forth, and search for an answer. So there's a method by which we search for answers, which is usually taught using Boolean logic. We can search for answers in Pubmed. So let us say I have used this here. Okay. So of course, this requires like how to search for an answer, a separate presentation altogether. But here, let us say, I have already done the search and I've come out with many results. Okay, nearly 1,263 results I've got based on the question which I had in mind. Now, if you look on the side here, okay, if you're able to see this, you see here on the left-hand side, we have whether you want it to be more specific, like your search, you want to change it. You want to filter your results. Okay, whether it's a meta-analysis or whether it's a randomized control trial, you can do it. Okay, like for example, like if you apply the filter here, like for example, meta-analysis. Okay, so you get all the articles out of those 1,263 articles which are meta-analysis. Or if you have applied for randomized control trial, you get all those articles which are RCTs. And if you click on systematic review, you also get the list of systematic reviews out of those 1,263 articles on oral lichen planus, which we have shortlisted. Okay. Now, then, which should I go in for? Okay, since now we are looking for a solution for treating oral lichen planus. Okay, we need to probably look at an RCT, or of course, even if you have a very good systematic review or meta-analysis. Okay, but let us say we have decided to go in for an RCT. Okay, so we select RCT filter and then we finalize the article, and that is how we have selected this particular article, topical NAVS. Okay, so basically non-aromatic, very rich in stearains, naphthalene for the treatment of oral lichen planus, which is also probably useful for treating recurrent after stomatitis. And this is quite a recent article, okay, in 2021. So that is how we are selecting an article. So this itself probably will show that how this is evidence-based journal club is different from the traditional journal club. Okay, so there's an elaborate process, for selecting the article. Even though the process is elaborate, this process is so useful because this is not only useful for selecting your articles for journal club, it also helps you in selecting your articles for all your other research work too. Okay, so we have now selected the article. So let us go back to the steps in evidence-based journal club. Okay, so we have identified the problem, framed the question, we have searched the answer for the question, we have selected an article, and we go to the next big step, critical appraisal. Okay, now critical appraisal again a very elaborate procedure, and we need to be probably trained to a certain extent in critical appraisal. Okay, so it cannot be developed overnight, and I will not be able to talk about the entire critical appraisal of articles in this particular presentation. However, I'm just going to give you an outline about critical appraisal so that it will pick your interest and probably make you get interested in critical appraisal. Okay, so let us look at critical appraisal. First and foremost, critical appraisal should not be confused with criticizing. The critical appraisal doesn't mean that we have to keep on finding faults with an article. So that's generally what is done in traditional journal club. We keep on finding what was wrong with the article. No, it was not grammatically correct. No, the methods were not correct. The sampling size was not proper. Like that. Okay. So it's not just about criticizing. If something good is there in the article also, we need to appreciate that fact. Okay, not to just keep finding faults with an article. So what is this critical appraisal? Critical appraisal is the assessment of evidence by systematically reviewing its relevance, validity, and results to a specific situation. So what is this relevance? Relevance basically means the quality of state or state of being closely connected and which is appropriate. Okay. Validity, the quality of being correct or true. Okay, so these are the two important points regarding critical appraisal. And you have different checklists for this critical appraisal. Okay, if you remember, I told you initially the problems could be etiologic, it can be therapeutic, it can be prognostic, and so forth. Okay, for each of these varieties, and depending on the type of articles, whether it's a randomized control trial, or whether it's a systematic review, or is it a meta-analysis, or is it a case report, okay, or is it a cohort study? Based on the different types of the study designs, CASP basically is a critically appraised skills program. They have formulated checklists, okay? So, of course, there are different other checklists also available, like Center for Evidence-Based Dentistry, Oxford University. They have their own checklist for these different types of studies. So what I'm going to show you here is just a standard checklist for RCT by CASP. So this is available in the website, which is there shown here. Okay, you can just go and download the standard checklist for whichever study you are interested in. Okay, so I'll not be going into detail about this. Basically, there are 4 sections in this standard checklist. Now, since our study was on RCT, like we have section A, which is basically a study design to see whether it is, whether the study design is valid or not for RCT or not. In fact, most of these standard checklists, they say that first 3 questions, okay, which is shown here. Did the study address a clearly focused research question? Was the assignment of participants to the intervention randomized? Were all the participants who entered in the study accounted for its conclusion? They say that if these first 3 questions, if the answer is no, then there's no point in going further. Okay, that means probably that article or the contents of the article may not be useful for us or for the problem in question. Okay, so then we can decide whether you need to go further in trying to critically appraise the article. Okay, but if the answer is yes, then probably you can proceed further with the other parts of the checklist. Like section B is about the methodology, whether the methodology is quite good or not. Section C is about the results, and section D is whether the results of that study are going to be useful for us. Okay, because a study which is conducted, let us say in the US, will be useful for a patient who is belonging to our country, a patient who belongs to South, let us say Tamil Nadu, and if that study works there, does it work for a person who is there here in the North? Okay, so like that, we need to assess and find out whether these results can be extrapolated, based on the results of this particular article in question. Okay, so in these articles, when we are critically assessing, one of the important aspects is whether the statistics which is shown in the article, that statistics is correct or not. Okay, I'm not a statistician. With the help of one of my colleagues, Dr. Ramaya here, so I made out this flow chart. So where, if you look at this flow chart, it's a very basic flow chart to help you to see whether the article in question has chosen the right statistic or not. Not only is this going to be helpful for this, in case you want to choose a statistic for your own research work, probably this is going to be quite useful. The first question is, we need to know the type of data. Is it continuous data or discrete data? Okay, is it normal or is it skewed? If the continuous data, is it normal or skewed? Now, in all these, whether normal continuous data or skewed continuous data or discrete data, either we can have two groups or more than two groups. Okay. Now, if you have more than two, if you have two groups, then they can be paired or unpaired groups. Okay. Now, if it is this paired or unpaired groups, okay, normal, yes. Fine. Is it clear? Fine. Okay. So if we have two groups, unpaired and paired continuous data. So if it is unpaired, continuous data, normal, two groups, unpaired, then you can go for t-test. Okay. If it is paired t-test. In a similar fashion, if it is more than two groups, so we'll have to see whether the statistical test used was ANOVA or not. Similarly, for skewed continuous data, for unpaired, Mann-Whitney U-test, for two groups, paired data, Wilcoxon signed rank test, and for skewed continuous data, more than two groups, non-parametric ANOVA test. For discrete data, we have chi-square test and Fisher's exact t-test. Okay, and for paired two groups of discrete data, McNama's test, and then chi-square test again for discrete data where you have more than two groups. Okay, so this is a very simple one. Of course, there are probably more statistical analysis available for the data which I have mentioned here, but this is just the basics to help you all to decide what type of statistical analysis should have been done in the study, or if you are doing a study of your own, whether any of this would be useful. Okay, right. So now we have completed the critical appraisal, and we end up with a one-page summary of the critical appraisal. That is called as critically appraised topic. Okay. Now, in the previous session, some were asking about, is there any software or application for a critical appraisal? Okay, so there is one particular cat maker. Okay, I'm just going to open this. 1 minute, just let it open. Oh, this is the software which is available. Okay, so those who are interested can email me later on. I'll be showing my email ID later on. Okay, so you can just email me and I'll send this. It's a zipped file, and you have to just unzip it and use it, which is an executive file. Okay. Yes, all of you can hear me now. See, this cat maker is a software which will help you to make your cat easily. Okay, that is critically appraised topic, or just decide which type of study you're using. Okay, let us say it is a therapy. Okay, just click on it. Okay, you have to just write a question here, so search terms here. Okay, the study, the patients. Okay, whether it's a randomized control trial, is there any blinding? Okay, the intention to treat, all the evidence also, you just have to mention all your evidence here. Okay, and at the end of it, after you get all your results, you just have to write the bottom line. And when you go here, so finally the cat maker, this should just say save, the output as a finished cat. Okay, and then it will be served as a text file. Okay, and you have to just save it as a text file. Okay, so this is easy to prepare your own cats. Okay, and just like cats have got 9 lives, this probably also has got less number of lives, in fact. Okay, because you have to give the date of birth for this, and also the date of death. That means this cat is probably good enough for next 2 years, next 3 years. Okay. After that, again, we have to make a new cat. Okay, so this is regarding this cat maker software. Okay, so for example, after preparing a cat, this is how it will appear. Okay, just to show what exactly this means, the bottom line is that if the question was, can topical tacrolimus be used as an alternate to topical clobetasol for treatment of oral lichen planus? So the bottom line of that particular cat is, in patients with oral lichen planus, topical treatment is equally effective in reducing symptoms, but topical tacrolimus may have higher efficacy. Okay, so this is just to show you how a cat would be appearing. Okay, and the bottom line. So we have now finished critically appraising the topic. We have prepared the cat. So the next topic, what we're going to do is the article which you have selected, we start, once we are ready with it, we circulate the article beforehand. Okay, and then go ahead with the presentation and the discussion. Okay, so the presentation is done by first initially showing a clinical scenario related to the problem in question, so that you pick the interest of the audience. Okay, so the audience is made to you ask the question to the audience, involve them. Okay, in fact, everybody, we also given the worksheet which you had used. Of course, the empty worksheet, the blank worksheets are given to the audience of what you have already prepared, critical appraisal. Okay, then you introduce the article in question, telling how you happen to search for this article and how you got the information. And then this critical appraisal of the paper is done. Now, as I said earlier, it can be a single individual who's presenting the entire evidence-based journal club, or a group of individuals can be involved. And even if it is a single person or a group of individuals presenting the evidence-based journal club, every member of the audience is also involved. Okay, everybody is asked questions about the various aspects of the critical appraisal on the worksheet, and then everybody is made to answer questions related, and then discussion is based on the answers. So it is not that discussion is done at the end of the journal club. Discussion goes along with the journal club with every aspect of the article in question. So at the end, the key points of the appraisal, the summary is given. And finally, if there are any changes to the CAT already which has been prepared, so the CAT is finalized. Okay, and then that is stored for clinical usage. As I told you, one of the biggest advantages of evidence-based journal club is that we are thinking of a problem in question, finding an answer, and we are preparing this CAT so that the bottom line of the CAT is used clinically for our clinical situations. Okay, so let us look at the advantages of evidence-based journal club. Number one, there's a method in selection of articles. We are not just randomly selecting an article, just going by look of the paper or by look of the journal. Okay, and we are looking at an article which is relevant to our clinical situation. And the quality of the articles on most of the occasions is going to be relevant and useful to us. And we are also looking at how to improve our skills. So PG students who are doing a journal club, they learn how to search the medical literature. They gain knowledge in epidemiology and biostatistics. They also acquire critical appraisal skills. So it is not just looking at an article and reading an article. We also gain a lot of these skills. And it is not a separate exercise, and it's seen as a part of daily patient care. And another advantage is that because of these worksheet exercises, the entire audience is quite engaged with the activity of the journal club. But of course, there are some inherent problems with evidence-based journal club. One, the students or the residents need to be trained in performing these critical appraisal skills. It is not easy, but it is not difficult either. Okay, it just requires certain amount of training, and probably a certain amount of knowledge in biostatistics is also necessary. Okay, and audience also has to be prepared. That's one of the problems for the people who are attending this journal club. No, they cannot just like walk into the journal club. They need to also be quite prepared beforehand. So let us summarize the differences between traditional journal club and evidence-based journal club. Okay, in both the cases, we have the article. Only thing is, in case of traditional journal club, the article is suggested by the senior faculty member, or the PG students just happens to select an article. Whereas in case of evidence-based journal club, a clinical scenario or a problem is presented to the PG student. Then the PG student starts framing the question, selects the article, finalizes the article, and critically appraises the article. And in both the cases, once that has been done, in case of evidence-based journal club and in case of traditional journal club, once the article has been selected, okay, these articles are selected beforehand. The PG student, in both the cases, presents the article along with critical analysis, but the critical analysis is more systematic, more in depth in case of evidence-based journal club. And when the article is being presented, the senior faculty members are going to facilitate the discussion. Okay, and the audience are also very much involved in case of evidence-based journal club. So to conclude my presentation, it is not enough to do the right thing. It is more important to do the thing the right way. Okay, so it's not just like that we have to conduct a journal club, therefore we conduct a journal club. But we have to conduct it in such a manner that the students, as well as the faculty members, all of us benefit out of this. So it is more important to do the thing in a right manner. Times are changing. Earlier, we all used to read books. Now everything is in e-books. So times have changed. Instead of books in hand, people have tablets in hand. So we also need to change along with the times. So we cannot keep on following the same old traditions and start with probably looking at newer methods of conducting the journal club. Thank you all for your undivided attention. So this is my email ID, subbarvi@gmail.com. You're free to email me if you have any doubts or clarifications, or ask me any questions related to what I've presented today. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the crisp presentation. So we have some questions. The first question is, in hierarchy of evidences, where do we place position, papers, and consensus report?
1 minute. Yes, what was the question?
In hierarchy of evidences,
yeah.
where do we place position paper and consensus report?
Consensus review, but probably I'm not exactly sure about this. Consensus
report and position paper.
Hierarchy of evidence.
Yeah.
Who has asked this question?
Dr. Rahul Rai.
Okay, Dr. Rahul Rai. Okay. Dr. Rahul Rai, if you can just email me, the question. I'll try to find out the answer for this. I'm not exactly sure about the answer for this consensus paper. Okay. I'll get back to you if you send your email ID to me.
Yeah. Sir, one more question we have from Dr. Shrikant.
Yeah.
What is jaded scale?
Jaded scale regarding?
Sir, one more question is there. Where do
what
we
is jaded? What is the question?
What is jaded scale? JADAD, jaded scale.
1 second. Is it as you typed in it here?
Yes, sir. It's in the chat box.
So let me check the chat box.
Sure.
Okay. What is this? I'm also not very familiar with this JADAD scale. Yeah. What is it related to? JADAD scale, any idea?
No, sir,
is it related to JADA magazine? I'm not, I also noted down.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I think all of you can send your questions to me. JADAD scale.
Yes.
Is it related to evidence-based journal club? Okay, I got you, Doctor. Yeah. Yes. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Where do we place umbrella review and scoping review?
Okay. See, the scoping reviews and all, no, probably they will be again coming under the top level of evidence-based, hierarchy. Okay. So because these are all secondary articles, right? So they will be again on the top. So based on the other articles, you are coming onto the scoping reviews. Okay, so they are on the top. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So same Rahul Rai asked these questions on.
Yes.
I've noted on his email ID.
Yeah.
So we can also email your questions to me, Dr. Rahul. Okay.
Yes.
So the earlier ones which
Dr. Srikanth.
yeah. Dr. Srikanth's question was on JADAD scale.
JADAD scale.
Okay. I mean, like, what is it related to JADAD scale? Any idea?
No,
Dr.
sir.
Srikanth?
We need to ask
Sir.
Dr. Srikanth.
Yes, somebody else also
Sir.
knows answer. Yeah.
Sir, I'm not sure, but Jadad scale is actually something scoring system given by Oxford University for the
Okay.
quality of the article, but I don't know the detail of it.
Okay. I mean, like Central of Evidence-Based Dentistry, Oxford, is it?
Yes, yes. They have the scoring system, and the scoring system they named as a Jadad scale, but
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
very sure about it, and the detail
Okay.
of it need to be studied.
Okay, okay. Fine. Any other questions, doubts, clarifications? So even if you come across any other questions, you're free to email me. Okay. In fact, the one which I told you, like the critically appraised topic. So there is a software for it, but even though it's a software, still, we need to have a lot of information before we actually can use the software. Okay. So we need to have knowledge about critical appraised skills and then use that software. So those who are interested, I can send that app. Okay. It's an executive file. So those really, they can just email me and I will send it across. Okay. As a zip file.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Let us appreciate Dr. Subramaniam with an e-certificate for sharing his immense knowledge with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we will be taking a short break of 15 minutes before moving to the next session. Everyone is kindly requested to stay here and please do not log out. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, let's move on to our third session for the day. We shall be inviting Dr. Monali Shah for her session on selection of article and preparation of evidence-based journal club. Dr. Monali Shah, Professor and Head, Department of Periodontology, K.M. Shah Dental College and Hospital, Sumandi Vidyapeeth, Vadodara, has taught periodontology for over 2 decades and has been actively involved in teaching evidence-based healthcare since 2007. She completed her BDS and MDS in periodontology from Government Dental College and Hospital, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. She has done world-level seminars with veterans of evidence-based practice such as Dr. Gordon Guyat. She was trained in systematic review and meta-analysis by the Joanna Briggs Institute in Australia. Over 450 citations have been attributed to her papers, which include 9 systematic reviews and meta-analysis published in international Pubmed indexed journals. She is best known for presenting evidence-based healthcare speeches, workshops, and presentations at both national and international levels. Now let us welcome Dr. Monali Shah to start her session on selection of article and preparation for evidence-based journal club.
Good morning, all. I- yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar on one of my very close to heart topic of evidence-based journal club. So the first part of my talk will be about selection of article and preparation of evidence-based journal club. Now the idea of this webinar came from this only because when we all teachers of periodontology, when we talk, we sometimes felt that we really need to understand that how the article need to be selected for the journal club. So with this idea of the webinar came, and I'll start with the topic of selection of article and how the postgraduate students can prepare themselves for an effective evidence-based journal club. We have already been understood in Dr. Harsh lecture that what is the need of evidence-based journal club in PG curriculum. And Dr. Subramaniam sir has very elaboratively told us about the differences between traditional and evidence-based journal club. So the next next thing what we need to understand is what should be the purpose of the journal club, because your selection of article will depend on this. Which are the types of the article which we generally find, where to find them, and what to do after selecting the particular article. So that is what we are going to focus on today. So purpose of journal club, we all know that in PG curriculum, we have almost 15 to 20 journal club, that is the quota given. So the purpose of the most important purpose for journal club for a PG student is to fulfill the quota for their PG studies. But here, why the journal club is there in the curriculum also? The reason is the purpose will be to make a clinical decision, preparing the guideline, preparing the systematic review and meta-analysis. The journal club will help to identify the gap for the research and create the hypothesis for further research. The journal club can be helpful to teach the students and the participants of the journal club. Journal club can be sometimes used to amuse others, to provoke the new idea, to impress your colleagues and seniors. And journal club can be used for storytelling. So when we decide to do a journal club, conduct a journal club, the purpose to be decided beforehand. When we want to do journal club for amuse or storytelling, we have to forget about the principles of evidence-based journal club, what Dr. Subraya sir has told us. Because to amuse or storytelling, none of the evidence-based concept is used. But for the remaining purposes, when we want to do journal club, we can follow the principles of evidence-based journal club. Now, the type of article which we select, it should be dependent on the purpose of the journal club. Right? For example, if we want to do a journal club for clinical decision making or to create our own research hypothesis, to teach the colleagues or juniors, or if it is to impress with your knowledge of evidence-based decision making, the best article which can be selected is original research. If your journal club is to provoke the new idea or to amuse the others with the recent concept, the best will be the case reports. The systematic review as an article can be selected for the evidence-based journal club, but that is generally used to make any clinical decision making, to identify the gap for further research, and definitely to teach. And narrative reviews are the type of article which are generally used to teach and for storytelling only. The narrative review again cannot be elaborated on the scales of evidence-based journal club. So what should be the character of the article which we select? So the paper or article which we want to present should have the important concept in a clear manner. So first of all, what we have done is we have understood the purposes. Depending upon the purpose we want to do, like for example, if I want to identify the gap in the research, or if I want to create my own hypothesis, then original research or a systematic review will be the better choice for me. So I will find out the original research or a systematic review, and the concept of the article should be very clear. It should solve the purpose of the journal club, basically. It should be a new learning for the participants. Otherwise, why the member should attend the journal club? And it should be interesting also. It should interest the majority of the participants in the journal club. It should not be only of the interest of PG students and guide. So then only it will be a successful activity. Now, where to find? Now, these are generally what is being practiced is that the article is decided beforehand and then the searching is performed. So that should not be done. Either first you decide the your purpose and the type of article you want to select, and these are different databases which you can look for. For example, if you put two keywords like peri-implantitis and chlorhexidine chips, this is what you are going to get in your Google Scholar database. I'm not talking about Google. Let us be very clear in this. Google will give you very undesired information also. So for the scientific articles, we need to see for the medical databases. So this is one of the database which is very easy to use and convenient, approachable to all. That is the Google Scholar database. Can you see this 1,500 items? So the Google Scholar had found 1,500 items when I have just put the two keywords like peri-implantitis and chlorhexidine chips. The next database which you can use is Pubmed. When the same two keywords like periimplantitis and chlorhexidine chip is used on Pubmed, we got only 2 results. So this is the difference between different databases. If I use the same in TRIP database, these are 9 results I found. So it is 9 results which are found if I use TRIP database. And the fourth desirable area where you can search for the article is the specialty journal. So now when, like being a periodontist, if I see the articles on the specialty journal of periodontology, and if I use the same keyword, I found 8 results. So the purpose of sharing this with you is the selection of database is very important, because searching will be different depending upon the purpose of your searching. So to teach entire searching is not possible here from this platform. But if you are doing searching for journal club, you may not need to search all the databases which I have shown you. You can just go through 1 or 2 databases and find out the article which you find is appropriate for you. But if you are doing searching for making a systematic review, or if it is a searching for your decision making, or as it's a part of your evidence-based decision making, that is a second step. If you are doing the searching for these 2 reasons, then you should search all the databases available to you. You cannot just do 1 or 2 searching here. So that is important as far as the searching is concerned. Now we are concentrating only on journal club. So when we are doing searching for journal club, you can just go through 1 or 2 databases which is easy access to you. Preferably no to Google Scholar for journal club. So now what after you find the article? So we are going ahead in that direction. Now what is being practiced during postgraduate? I am focusing on journal club presented during the postgraduate studies. Now what is being practiced routinely? I know many of you agree with me. The deadline for journal club presentation is given. Then randomly few articles will be selected, because generally the guide will or mentor will say that show me few articles. So randomly 5 or 6 articles will be selected, and from that the guide will select one. So one article is approved by the guide, and that may be shared or may not be shared with the colleagues depending upon the system one have in the department. Then it will be presented by the PG from the podium. Presenter will and what is the most important thing which we have to understand here is, majority of the time when a postgraduate student is presenting a journal club, the presenter will is generally taking the ownership of that article and will start justifying it on behalf of authors. Now that is not required in journal club, right? So what is required? We need to identify a clinical case, or if there is a research hypothesis in your mind, or if you have any diagnostic or therapeutic dilemmas. So that is the area from where the idea of topic for journal club will arise. Depending on that idea, you will identify the MASH keywords. Now we all know Pico, right? So we'll identify the keywords from the Pico, and we'll perform a systematic search on any of the databases which we are convenient to use, which is convenient for us to use. Then from that databases, we need to filter some irrelevant, because if you are using Google Scholar as your database, there will be a lot of irrelevant information on that also. So we need to filter it out. Then that need to be approved by your guide and mentor definitely. It should be shared with the colleagues before 2 weeks time. We need to give them time to read the article before they come to attend the journal club. And most important thing here to understand by the presenter is, you are just presenting the article in the way it is. We don't need to take the ownership of the article and start protecting the author. That is not our role when we are doing journal club presentation. So we need to stand out of it and then present it as a third person. Then it will become more fruitful and informative for all those who are present there. So this need to be practiced. And the other most important thing is, whenever a journal club is set up, the journal club should be set up on this type of sitting arrangement. Why this is important is, whenever you have like someone talking from the podium and there is audience, so there will be like, one is presenting and others are listening, that type of impression it will have. Or if you have something like the faculties are sitting on one side and the students are sitting on the other side, they will never come at the same platform. The main advantage of journal club is that all the participants have equal opportunity to share their views, and that is somewhere lost if the sitting arrangement is not practiced properly, because the sitting arrangement has the impact on the people who are present there. So it is advisable to have the sitting arrangement in a way that where all are at the equal level, so that they can share their view. Now, how will you prepare? How one should prepare for the evidence-based journal club? Now, the article is selected and it has been shared with the members before 2 weeks is minimum time, 3 weeks is preferable. Then the presenter, now the role of presenter. So the one person will be a presenter and he or she will be guided by the guide or the mentor. So the entire journal club is around this 2 person. The presenter will make a presentation, and how the presentation should be. The presentation should be consisting of the brief information about the article. So the article will be presented as it is. Remember, here we are not justifying anything. The article is presented as it is. It should not be for more than 10 minutes. Rather, I will say 5 minutes is enough for this here. The second part of the presentation will be the critical appraisal of the evidence. Now, in some area or some purposes, for some purposes, there will be critical appraisal of article also, as suggested by your guide or depending upon the purpose. But when we talk about evidence-based practices, we generally prefer critical appraisal of evidence. Risk of bias, that will be the third part of the presentation. Applicability will be the fourth part of the presentation. And the fifth part will be some take-home message, that what you are going to conclude. Now, this conclusion is not the conclusion of the article, remember that. This is the inference. After doing all the critical appraisal exercise, after assessing the risk of bias, after checking about the applicability of the article, you will put your own inference. Now, this is the area where all the members present in the club will give their inputs. So there will be definitely a discussion, lot of discussion happen during this phase of the journal club presentation. So all the discussion and inputs from the members will be taken. There are chances that presenter need to change the inference. So what should be done is, the entire proceeding can be minuted. So that will be helpful when you are doing your hypothesis preparation or when you are changing your clinical decision. So these proceedings of the journal club will become an evidence for you in future. And there are journals which publish these proceedings of journal club, but the journal club should be evidence-based journal club. Then they will publish this as an article, the proceedings of the journal club. So this is how the preparation of journal club should happen and how it should be done at the time of journal club. Now, one question which you may have in your mind, that what is the difference between critical appraisal of evidence and critical appraisal of article? Because it's article and article is labeled as evidence. Right, all the articles we label it as evidence, But the difference is when we do critical appraisal of article, it is generally to teach the students. It is sometimes used to impress others, that see how much detail I can elaborate on this. And many of the times it is used for storytelling. But when I talk about critical appraisal of evidence, it is done for clinical application part, for guidelines preparation, for preparation of research protocol or hypothesis. If you want to do quality analysis for your systematic review, then you need to do critical appraisal of an evidence. Critical appraisal of article is done from starting from title to reference. Like if you see the critical appraisal of article, if you have ever attended it or if you have done it, you will start the appraisal from the title, that how the title is, how long it is, whether it is very short, whether title is telling about the content of the article. You know, you will start it from the title. While in case of critical appraisal of evidence, you will appraise methodology, results, and applicability. These are the three things which are required when you are doing critical appraisal of evidence. Methodology, results, and applicability. Only three things are evaluated. When we talk about article, we use the checklist like Prisma, MOS, STARS, all those detailed checklists. Like for example, Prisma has almost 27 points in the checklist. So that elaborative checklist is used when we do critical appraisal of article. But when we do it for the evidence, as sir has told, a CASP appraisal toolkit by Oxford or McMaster, any of that can be used. Yes. So am I clear? Am I audible now? Okay. So is it clear? This is the difference between critical appraisal of article and critical appraisal of evidence. Now these two things are different. So depending upon the purpose and depending upon the guidelines you are following in your department, you can select what you want to do. But when it is for clinical application part, when it is for the quality analysis of systematic review, you should definitely go for critical appraisal of evidence. That will be less time consuming and more useful. So, as we know all good clinical practice guidelines, we have certain good journal club practice guidelines. The first important thing is that a good journal club practice, you should make it a routine. It should be routine at a regular interval of time. You can decide, like for example, every first Monday of the month or every first and third Monday of the month, depending upon your requirement. You can designate a leader. The leader will be either a presenter or the guide. Any of them can work as a leader. You can get organized. You need to get organized. As I told you that beforehand, the papers should be circulated. You can even share that which checklist you are going to follow for the critical appraisal. All the members should pre-read the papers. We can build a community of the similar interest people that cannot be every time only the department who is doing it. It can be extended out of the department, so more fruitful journal club. The good practice will be the paper should be relevant to the question. The presentation should be engaging. The participant should be allowed to put their view here and try to keep it exciting. And the most important thing is that don't take the ownership of the article which you have selected. You have to be out of the box to present it. Present it as a third person. So then it will be useful for useful activity and a great learning for all the postgraduates and faculties. So this is about the good journal club practice guidelines. And this brings to the end of my first topic, first session on the selection of article and journal club, how to prepare yourself for it. Shall I directly start my second presentation? Okay. If any questions are there, we can stop. Otherwise, I'll start with the next session. Is there any question, or I'll start?
We'll start.
Okay. So the next part, or rather what we are more interested to look forward is the evidence-based journal club as a whole. So what I have tried in this presentation is, I myself have prepared one article and presented it here as a presenter in the evidence-based journal club. Now, as this is an online webinar, I request all the participants that wherever you find any question, just post it there in the chat box immediately. So at the end, I will be able to answer all the queries. Here, it's not the actual hands-on experience for us. So I was not able to share the article with you beforehand in advance, and you will not be able to give your inputs. But at least how the evidence-based journal club can be presented, that example, it's an example. I'm not claiming it's an ideal thing, but this is an example of it. So as I told you, the evidence-based journal club presentation should have 4 main parts. We'll discuss about the article, we'll do the critical appraisal of the article, we'll assess the risk of bias, and we'll check for the applicability. So this is the article which I have presented here as a journal club presentation. It is about the repeated delivery of chlorhexidine chips for the treatment of peri-implantitis, a multi-center randomized comparative clinical trial. This article is published in Journal of Periodontology, and it is published in year 2020. Why I'm telling this is, as we have learned in the previous session, that critical appraisal or evidence-based practice will teach you doing critical analysis. So before applying it to your practice, we are learning whether we should apply this or not. So at the end part of this presentation, we'll see how it is useful. So what the article is about, why this article is selected. So when I'm writing introduction, the introduction is not from the article. The introduction is about why this article. So peri-implantitis is rapidly becoming a frequently encountered disease entity. Approximately 10 million new implants placed annually. And the failure rate is also very high. It's documented that it's very high. And the problem and magnitude is going to increase. There is one systematic review conducted by Cochrane in year 2012, which is about effectiveness of various treatment protocols for peri-implantitis, but they could not suggest any treatment modality which is most effective. So it is actually a non-conclusive systematic review. And there was one more meta-analysis published in 2017 that is about the non-surgical modality, but it has again, it has effect on bleeding on probing, but regarding the pocket reduction, It has not concluded anything. So the article published in 2020 was selected, which has compared the debridement with chlorhexidine chips as a non-surgical treatment modality. So the objective of the article, which I am presenting here, is to assess the adjunctive effect of multiple application of chlorhexidine chips into the peri-implant pockets affected by peri-implantitis after subgingival implant surface debridement and compare it to repeated implant surface debridement. So there is comparison of two different treatment modality here. And the study design is randomized single blind 2-arm parallel clinical trial. From the article, we will retrieve the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And this criteria is just to understand the study population. Because when we talk about clinical applicability, we need to understand the study population, whether they are similar to our population or not. Just for that reason, we need to study this. So basically, they are adult patient with peri-implantitis having bone loss of 3 mm from the implant shoulder, and chlorhexidine allergy and all those things are excluded. The methodology of the article, still I am presenting the article only here. Eligible patients underwent full mouth periodontal examination followed by supragingival scaling. Baseline measurements of diseased implants included implant probing depth, bleeding on probing, and recession. These are the primary outcome of interest. They are assessed at baseline and definitely at the follow-up. Patients were randomly assigned into one of the two treatment protocol. The first treatment protocol is repeated supragingival plaque removal. That is a control arm. And supragingival plaque removal with repeated chlorhexidine chip insertion up to 2 chips per pocket depending on the pocket width every 2 weeks up to 12 weeks. Now understand this. Methodology, when we are talking about, we need to be very clear that what the authors have done. So authors have done supragingival plaque removal in the control arm, definitely repeated supragingival plaque removal. And in the test arm, they have done supragingival plaque removal with repeated chlorhexidine chip insertion. Now repeated means 2 chips every time, every 2 weeks for 12 weeks. So this is the frequency of repetition. The randomization was done using computerized system. Examiners were blinded to the treatment the patients has received. That means the patients were not blinded. It is a single blind study. In both the groups, subgingival debridement was performed. At 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, IPD recession and POP was recorded. And final measurements were recorded at 6 months, that is 24 weeks. And these are the results. Now here, for the convenience and make this presentation brief, I have included only one table here. There are 5 to 6 tables in the article, but this table I have included here. So when we are discussing the results, the most important and significant results can be discussed. Other non-significant and not very important results can be omitted at the time of journal club presentation. So this is the table which has results of IPD, RAL, and recession, that is the gingival marginal level, and it has shown significant p-value 0.01, 0.001, and 0.015. The significant value is for the change in the probing depth, change in the RA level, and change in the recession. So try to remember this circle. This we are going to use as a reference in future. So the results are this. There is significant improvement in test group as well as in control group. Now merits and demerits of the article we'll see. The merits of the article is, it is a multi-center RCT. It's a parallel arm study. 6 months follow-up is done. Optimum sample size is there. more than 150 sample size, around 150 odd sample size is there, and they have done sample size calculation also very proper way. And important clinical parameters like IPD, recession, and RAL is taken up. What are the demerits? Now the demerits are, it's a single blind, not double blind. As there is no placebo as a control arm, when we have analyzed the article, more female population is used, and the age group which are included is very wide. It is like more than 18. There is no upper limit set there. So it's a wide age group, and depending upon age, definitely the patient is going to respond to the thing. So these are the demerits of the article. Still, we are not appraising the evidence. Other important articles for this selected article is similar study with minocycline in moderate peri-implantitis, where pockets are smaller, IPD reduction was reported. In vitro study, 1% chlorhexidine has worked to reduce the total bacterial count. And tetracycline fibers for the treatment of peri-implantitis, there was bulk improvement in IPD in first 30 days, while minor improvement was observed in another 6 to 12 months. So this is other important article which are related to my article which I am presenting. And the conclusion of the article, the current study showed significant reduction in deep pockets. It is reasonable to assume that the sites with initial IPD of 7 to 8 mm are likely to benefit the most from this protocol, with an anticipated mean reduction of 2 mm. Use of chlorhexidine chip as an adjunct to conventional debridement can lead to improvement of inflammation around implant, and further need of surgery can be avoided. So this is the conclusion of the article. Still, we have not started any critical appraisal or any discussion. It is only about the article. Okay, so this is the first part of the presentation where I have just talked about how the article need be introduced. So it should not take more than 10 minutes. The second part now, the second part will be the critical appraisal part. The critical appraisal of evidence, so it's a randomized controlled trial, and the checklist which I have used is the checklist used in my department. So you can make your own checklist. It's not always necessary that you should follow the checklist provided online free of cost every time. You can use your own knowledge, your own creativity, and make your own checklist. So now we'll see the critical appraisal of the article. So the evidence which has been selected here is peri-implantitis, where the implant pocket depth is more than 5 mm, 5 to 8 mm pocket depth cases are selected, where subgingival debridement with chlorhexidine chips was used in one group and subgingival debridement in another group. Plaque and gingival index was taken up just for the inclusion criteria, but IPD, recession, and BOP was taken with RAL as the outcome of interest. So this is the Pico of the article, and as we know, the first question in the critical appraisal is, did the trial address a clearly focused question? Yes, it is a focused question. There is no doubt in it. Was the assignment of the patient to the treatment randomized? Yes. All the eligible patients were assigned a randomized number at the baseline visit, and each randomized number was randomly assigned to letter A and B. And computerized generated algorithm was used for random allocation, where all the patients who entered the trial properly accounted for at its conclusion. No, because there is lots to follow up in this study. So to overcome this, the study has mentioned that analysis was done in two different ways. One is intention to treat analysis and one is the per population analysis. So two type of statistical analysis was done. The first is all the patients included in the MITT analysis, but in per protocol analysis, only the participants who completed the study were included. But yes, there is lots to follow up. So the answer for this question will be no. Were patients, health workers, and study personnel blind to the treatment? Yes. The patients are blind to the treatment, the health workers are blind to the treatment given, sorry, not health workers, but the evaluators were blind to the treatment given to the patient. But the only concern here is the participants were not blinded because no placebo used. Now, this type of place during a journal club presentation can be used as the area for discussion. So the duty of the presenter or the facilitator or mentor is to start discussion at this point, right? For example, here, for this example, the patients were not blinded because the placebo was not used. So the patient knows that in some of the patients, there is some chip which is placed at the other patient because they are already signing the informed consent form. So they know that in my mouth, none of the medicament is placed. So whether it has any placebo effect or not. So that need to be discussed here. Second thing is the examiners were blinded in this study, but the placebo is not used. So in that case, this blinding is very vulnerable. The examiner will come to know whether the chip is kept here or not. So here the blinding is claimed, but it has some concern. So this type of area can be used for discussion. Am I right? So going forward, whether groups were similar at the start of the trial? Yes. So from where you come to know? We really need to see the baseline characteristics. So the baseline characteristic of the patients, age, gender, race, ethnicity, smoking habit, dental status, all this is presented as a demographic characteristic of included participants. And you can check whether they are similar at the start or not. And regarding the parental parameter also, you can check it at the baseline data. So they are similar at the start of the trial. Aside from the experimental intervention, the groups treated equally. Yes, both the groups received subgingival debridement at baseline and at each treatment session up to 12 weeks. So it is similar for both. Now, how large was the treatment effect? Now, this is very important. How large was the treatment effect? So the treatment effect, when we talk about treatment effect, we see that what is the difference which has happened. Now, if you see this table, now this is the area where one can do a lot of discussion. Like we'll see only PP population because MITT population has some other issues of risk. So PP is per protocol population. So that part of the table need to be addressed more better way. So 89 participants were there in the test group and 88 participants were there in the control group, wherein this is the reduction of pocket depth reduction in 5 to 6 mm, pocket depth reduction in 6 to 7 mm, and pocket depth reduction in 7 to 8 mm. In all these subgroups, it is separately presented, and maximum effect is seen if the pocket depth is 7 to 8 mm in both the groups. Minimum effect is seen if the pocket depth is 5 to 6 mm. So this is the effect of 7 to 8 mm pocket, which is there is reduction of 2 to 2.21 mm, while in case of test group it is 1.89 mm, plus or minus standard deviation definitely. So this is the effect. So we need to understand that the treatment effect is in 7 to 8 mm probing depth, the treatment effect is 2.21 compared to 1.89. Remember, it is compared to 1.89. So actual difference is not that big as it is seen here. So that's why we always see the precision of the treatment effect and the clinical significant part. So 95% confidence interval is calculated for the clinical parameters. The question here is, what if the confidence interval is not given in the article? So one can calculate the confidence interval, but this is very important to know the precision of the treatment effect. Now, why we want the precision? For example, I have calculated it for you and find out that in the test group, where every 2 weeks the chlorhexidine chip is placed in a pocket of 7 to 8 mm, there is reduction of 1.58 millimeter to 1.94 millimeter. So either I will get reduction of 1.58 or I will get reduction of 1.74. But if I don't put chlorhexidine chip, either I will get pocket depth reduction of 1.37 or a pocket depth of reduction in 1.71. So this is the importance of 95% confidence interval, that we'll come to know the range of effect and what to do if the confidence interval is not given. We have the formula of confidence interval calculation, where we need to know the sample mean. We need to determine the confidence level value, which we generally put at 95%. We should know the standard deviation and we should know the sample size. If we have this much information from the article, which is generally there in any peer-reviewed journal, you can calculate the confidence interval. And if you don't love maths, you can use confidence interval calculator available online free of cost anytime, every time. So this is what you need to put your data here, set up the confidence level, and you will get the confidence interval in this line. The last line of the peach color box, you will have your confidence interval, and that can be used when you are doing critical appraisal. I hope it's clear to all. Now, the next question for critical appraisal is, can the results be applied to the local population? Yes. I have told you that when we have studied the inclusion and exclusion criteria of the article, the participants or the patients covered in this trial were the one undergoing peri-implantitis treatment. And the population here also is similar. Now, this is the area where there can be a debate or discussion, because sometimes people may say that the article which we have appraised, and if you see the baseline characteristic of the article, the majority of the population is white. They are not Indian or Asian in that way. So we need to discuss here, if required, whether the response of a person to the local debridement and the application of chlorhexidine chip, whether it is going to have any difference because of the difference in the race, yes or no. So we have to really understand this. For example, if I'm finding a treatment option for a geriatric population, and if this article has not, but if this evidence is only for the participants aged from 18 to
Due to some technical issue, we shall be resuming in a few minutes.
I hope it is visible and I am audible. Okay. So the next part is where all the clinically important outcomes considered. So as I told, the clinical outcomes are IPD, RL, recession, and BOP that were recorded, but the radiographic evaluation was not done. So if we want to know whether there is any change in the bone loss around implant, this article or this evidence will not be useful to us because it has not been evaluated in this article. Are the benefits worth the harm and the cost? Now, this area, this question cannot be answered by one person. The presenter will only present his view, but the members of the journal club will actively participate here. So what we have seen is the results are statistically significant. Even the authors have concluded that there is a clinical improvement when there was chlorhexidine chip inserted in the pocket. But the improvement was not significant when there was intergroup analysis. That means when test and control group was compared, it was not a significant result. So that is most important thing. So what was the benefit? That is the doubt. Every 2 weeks follow-up for 12 weeks. That is, the patient need to come for nearly 7 visits. The follow-up period was only 24 weeks. And we need to consider the price of chlorhexidine chip because chlorhexidine chips is very high. And the protocol suggested in this evidence is 2 chips per pocket for 6 times. So it is actually 12 chips. 12 chlorhexidine chips will be used to treat one periimplantitis site compared to other site where there is no chips inserted, only subgingival debridement was done. So this does not bring to the end of the list, long list. This is what we have done is the critical appraisal of the evidence. From here, we'll see the risk of bias involved. Because if biases are there, again, it questions the quality of the evidence. Please remember, I'm not evaluating the article. Article is a very nicely written article. We are not doing critical appraisal of the article. We are doing appraisal of the evidence. The best article can be a poor evidence. So we need to remember this. So this is the article and we are going to see the risk of bias here. So what is bias? We all know. And for this presentation, we have used Cochrane risk of bias tool. The study design, that was the first part of the Cochrane risk of bias tool, that is the randomized controlled multicenter parallel trial. So it is considered to be a very good design. The first component is bias arising from the randomization process. So it is unclear because there is allocation, the allocation was computer generated, so randomization was done. But the allocation sequence, whether it is concealed or not, that is not mentioned in the article. So it is very unclear. The risk of bias judgment is unclear. This is how you can present your risk of bias. The question, the component of the risk of bias tool, the questions need to be answered. And in the end, it will be ROB judgment, that is risk of bias judgment. Whether it is unclear, high risk, low risk, whatever is your judgment. The bias due to deviation from the intended intervention. Were the participants aware of their assigned intervention during the trial? It is not mentioned because there is no placebo used. There is no placebo used, so there is concern for it. Participants should not be aware of whether they are in the test arm or whether they are in the control arm. You are doing blinding, but here the blinding is compromised, because in the very beginning, when we do informed consent procedure, we need to inform the participants that we are going to evaluate this medicated chip. And when we don't put any chip in the peri-implant site, patient will definitely come to know that in my problem, in my peri-implant pocket, no medicated chip was inserted. So that is the concern. Were the carers and trial personnel aware of participants' assigned intervention during the trial? It is partially yes, because they have claimed that they were blinded. It's a single blind study. Were any participants analyzed in a group different from the one to which they were assigned? That means that whether there is any crossover or not, but no, there is no crossover. But because of this first two questions, this ROB judgment will become high risk. Another part is bias due to missing outcome data. Now, missing outcome data is dropouts. The dropout has been handled here. The questions asked here is, were outcome data available for all or nearly all participants randomized? Yes, because even for the dropouts also, they have done the analysis. Are the proportion of missing outcome data and reasons for missing outcome data similar across the intervention? The reason for missing outcome data is not mentioned except the protocol violation. So that is not very sure whether it is similar in both the groups. So it has some concern. The risk of bias judgment is unclear here because we cannot say whether it is high risk, low risk, or moderate risk. So there are some concern regarding this protocol violation. The second part is bias in measurement of the outcome. Were outcome assessor aware of the intervention received by the study participants? No, they are not aware. And was the assessment of the outcome likely to be influenced by knowledge of intervention received? Yes, definitely. If the assessor know that in this patient, the chlorhexidine chip is used, definitely he will become biased on it. But in the present evidence, it has been taken care by inter-examiner kappa analysis. But still, I will put it from my side as a presenter, it's a moderate risk for the risk judgment. Bias in selection of reported results. Are the reported outcome data likely to have been selected on the basis of results from multiple outcome measurement within the outcome domain? Yes. And the multiple analysis was done? Yes. The judgment is high. Now, how this answer has come? Yes, for the first question, that itself require a full day workshop on analysis of statistics used for the article. But here it is yes, and multiple analysis of the data is also done. So it is a high risk. So when we say overall risk of bias, it is a high risk of bias and a poor quality study. So we have selected a poor quality study because it is published in Journal of Periodontology, which is a high impact journal of the specialty. But now we don't know, after doing critical appraisal and risk of bias judgment, we don't know where to go. So that happens during the journal club also. And that's why we have the section in the journal club presentation, that is the applicability. Now, before going to the applicability, the presenter should present about the technique or material used in the article or your evidence. Now, this is very important. Here we are going to talk about the product which is used. Sometimes it may be a technique, and the technique is so technique sensitive that a person need to master it before we use it. Here we are going to talk about the product because this article is about the product. So chlorhexidine chips were used. It is commercially available local drug delivery. It is a biodegradable material. It is manufactured by Israel, which they have used in this article. It is available as a small round edged rectangular chip, which cost around $355 per packet. Okay, so the cost of chlorhexidine chip, which is used in this article, is $355 per packet, and the concentration used is 2.5 milligram. The packet is consisting of 10 chips. Now, why I'm talking all this, we'll come to know. In India, it is available as from the Universal Surgical, but the availability is doubtful. And second thing is the dosage and the product which is available in Indian market is 2 milligram, not 2.5 milligram. And we know the importance of concentration of any drug when it is used as LDD. The dosage administered in the article is 2.5 milligram. The placement of placebo is not very difficult. The recommended dosage is, it is placed once in 3 months. But this recommendation is for periodontitis. And for peri-implantitis, this type of articles we have to review. The precaution is that one should avoid flossing for 10 days. This is regarding the product. So we need to learn about the product first before we go for the decision of applying it in our clinical practice. Mechanism of action, indication, contraindication, adverse effect is only one, that is the pain and sensitivity. Now the applicability part. This is the most important part of any evidence-based journal club. Before we understand the applicability, we should remember that this evidence is having high risk of bias. Statistically significant difference is observed in both groups, but clinically no significant improvement is seen in the intergroup comparison. According to this article, the chlorhexidine chip is costing around 5,200 per therapy, which is not very cost effective for the improvement of 1.7 mm. If you remember, I have shown you the confidence interval table where we have seen that probing depth reduction is 1.9 mm to 1.60 compared to no treatment, which is 1.71 to 1.3. If you can imagine this two figure in two lines, the lines are overlapping. So that means that clinically we don't have any significant improvement when we compare two groups. So the inference could be, looking at the limitation of the study and the risk of bias, which is very high, chlorhexidine chip for the treatment of mild to moderate cases of peri-implantitis has no added cost-effective advantage or clinically significant improvement over subgingival debridement. Further studies can be conducted with indigenous material available for us. So this can be the inference in the end when we do evidence-based journal club. I thank here to all my postgraduate students to help me making this presentation. I acknowledge their inputs and efforts for this. And I'm there for any questions if there are.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, we have a question from Dr. Mudra Andaria. There are articles in which mean and standard deviation values are not mentioned. Then how to calculate confidence interval?
See, when mean and standard deviation are not mentioned, they could have mentioned mean and standard error. So when you look for any confidence interval calculator available online, they have different permutation combinations available. The tool which I have shown you, they have standard deviation, mean, and sample size. Sample size will definitely you know, mean you will definitely know. The only change will be there in the article is standard deviation or standard error. Any of that will be definitely there in a peer reviewed journal. But if you are talking about the journal which are not peer reviewed, I think that article should not be selected for appraisal itself.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any other questions from any participants? Okay. So now we shall be moving on to the end part of our webinar. First, let us appreciate Dr. Monali Shah for sharing her immense knowledge on evidence-based journal club with the help of a certificate.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Prasad Nadig to kindly give the scientific report of the webinar and for the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. The success of any scientific event is the participation and the scientific deliberation. We had over 268 delegates from 87 dental colleges across the country. This included faculties as well as postgraduate students of all the dental specialty. The scientific deliberation was also very informative and all the participants had great learning. Dr. Harsh Shah had made all the participants understand the need of journal club for postgraduate students. The Dr. Subramaniam had shared his knowledge in nutshell and make us understand difference between traditional and evidence-based journal club. Dr. Monali Shah ma'am had guided us how to prepare for journal club and how to present it. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all the dignitaries. On behalf of the Department of Periodontology, KM Shah Dental College and Hospital, Sumandip Vidyapeeth, I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence to make this webinar a success. I extend my gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sumandip Vidyapeeth, Dr. Rajesh Bharani sir, and all the university authorities for their constant support. A special thanks to Dr. R. Venkata Subramaniam, Dean KM Shah Dental College and Hospital for always inspiring and encouraging us. I am grateful to speakers Dr. R. Venkata Subramaniam, Dr. Harsha, and Dr. Monali Shah for sharing their knowledge and enlightening on evidence-based journal club. I must thank IT department of Sumandip Vidyapeeth for technical support and Dr. Santosh Goje sir, Head Department of Orthodontics for permitting us to use the seminar. A heartfelt thanks to the faculties of Department of Periodontology, postgraduate students and non-teaching staff, and all the participants for their active participation. See you all in Perio Insight, which will be held offline on August 5th and 6th of 2022 in Vadodara, Gujarat. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Uh, uh, Good afternoon, ma'am. Actually, we have some questions on our comment section on the live webinar, which was going on YouTube. So the first question was, what are the criteria we should focus on when we are selecting a checklist for the critical appraisal of an article?
The criteria, okay, the criteria for checking, selecting the checklist. Okay, we have three widely used checklists. One is by Center of Evidence-Based Medicine, that is from Oxford. One is by McMaster, and one is the CASP checklist. Or you have a checklist from Joanna Biggs also. The checklist to be used should be self-explanatory and it should be brief. We should not go on selecting the checklist which is too long to be practiced in a routine day-to-day journal club. So these are the two points which we need to consider. The best will be you can combine all the checklist and make your own checklist. That will become the best thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
And if you want any ready-made checklist, you can ask us.
Yes,
We have our department's checklist available.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question. What should be given more importance, clinical significance or statistical significance?
Definitely clinical significance, because statistical significance will be a statistical analysis of the data. So I'll give you one example, that if you are doing a study on 20 samples, and if you are getting the probing depth difference of 0.1 millimeter, you may find that it is statistically insignificant. But if you are getting the similar difference of 0.1 millimeter, but if your sample size is, for example, 500, you will definitely find it statistically significant. So the difference here is only 0.1 millimeter, but it gives you statistical significant improvement. While in case of clinical significance, this 0.1 millimeter is not clinically significant. So the more weightage should be always given to clinical significance. And that's the reason majority of the medical journals now, I'm talking about the high impact journals like Journal of like NEBGM or British Journal of Medicine or Lancet, they give more importance to confidence interval rather than p-value. So they will allow your article, they will accept your manuscript if it has confidence interval and no p-value. So the confidence interval will tell us about the clinical significance, and that is the importance of clinical significance.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Are there any other questions from the participants? Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So everyone is kindly requested to fill the feedback form, which is going to be shared with you via WhatsApp and email. The certificate for this webinar will only be issued after the feedback form is filled. Now I would like to invite Dr. Prasad Nadik to inform us about Perio Insight, which is going to be held on 5th and 6th August 2022. I would like to thank everyone for your active participation, which helped to make this webinar a huge success. Thank you so much, everyone.